Chris Rempel here from the Lazy Marketer, and I'm on the call with Dave Kelly from PosiRank. And Dave and I have worked together in different capacities over the years. Within the SEO space, we had a pretty successful launch of ClickBank years ago called the Ultimate Search Engine Loophole, and that did really well, and that led to a few other things. And ultimately, I was the CMO for PosiRank for I think when did that start? 2013,
Yeah.
and it's still rolling. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. And Dave has been around in the SEO space for far longer than that. He was doing SEO back before Google existed. So maybe,
You're dating me.
Dave, do you want to give us kind of a Reader's Digest version of your background in SEO?
Yeah, I just told somebody today I've been doing this for 28 years, and I'm thinking 28 years. It's like half the people that are my customers aren't even 28 years old. You know. But yeah, I started doing this in 95 when there was a lot of search engines back then, and half of them I probably don't even remember. Excite, Lycos, Northern Light, InfoSeek, more than I care to remember. And it was a different world back then. Google wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah.
Uh, and a lot has changed through the years, but some things haven't.
No, and it's even when you look at the size of the internet itself, I was doing a piece years ago for my blog, and I was amazed that I think in the height of the dot-com boom, like 1999, that kind of era, there were only like 30 million internet users. That's like the population of Canada,
I
right?
was going
So
to say it's not much.
it's pretty amazing. And well, I guess Canada's 39 now, but anyway, it's for all the hoopla and for, like you said, there was 20 different search engines and stuff. Not really a lot of people to at the time. And I think these days, God, what's Google's daily active users? I think it's like 4 billion, right?
It's crazy. It's a
Yeah,
crazy number.
totally.
It's like
But
half the planet.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's some countries too. I mean, this is kind of a quick bunny trail, but I think countries like India and a few others, massive population centers, they basically skipped the whole desktop phase. It's like they went, with the mobile revolution and smartphones, like there are entire sections of the internet that have only been mobile for the most part, right?
Yeah, that's a
And
different world. I'm from the desktop era, so I still do my work mostly on a desktop, but I got all the devices, and it's just. But I still like the big screen, probably because my eyes are getting worse as I get older.
I'm the same. No, it's even my laptop is kind of on the small side for me.
Yeah.
I'm a big screen guy. Um, no, that's funny. But for SEO, it's you've been through every phase of it, and one thing I tell people is I think I've watched SEO die about 40 different times, right? And it just keeps coming back. But, over the years, based on what you've seen, like what stands out as sort of, the underlying constants, and what do you see as something that people can just kind of basically what's been important all the way along, and what's maybe less important.
Yeah, I try to divide it into two different eras, what I kind of call the old time era, which I'd say pre-Google.
Yeah,
And, things were very different then. But, since Google came around, what was it, 98, maybe something like that when they first came on the scene.
sounds about right.
And it changed very quickly when Google came on the scene because they did have a better algorithm and they had a better way of doing it. I mean, it's not that they drove everybody out of business. It's that they did what everybody else was doing a bit better. And
Mm,
that's kind of what changed the game. And you got better results, more accurate results. They were never quite as easy to manipulate as, Alta Vista and Lycos and some of the early search engines. And once Google came on the scene, you could still um, do a lot of black hat stuff for a few years and get away with it. But the one constant I think that hasn't changed significantly is good content.
Yeah.
Good content has always worked, and it continues to work today. There's been 100,000 info products that have come out through the years telling people, and hell no, we created one, and how to fool the search engines. But good content is still good content, and it's not become less important. It's become more important as
Yeah.
time has gone on, to the point where it's probably the single most important ranking factor out there today. And with artificial intelligence, everybody's looking for another shortcut. And AI is good and it has a lot of uses. Is content generation going to be one of them that's going to? I don't think so. I think it's going to be Google's smarter than that. They'll use their AI to say your AI is no good.
And I wonder too, I think what's Google's share of the browser market with Chrome? Like I think it's 80 something percent, or maybe even close to 90, right?
It's some astronomical number. It's higher than what Internet Explorer was in its heyday.
Totally. So I think
50%. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it's up there for sure. I think you know, I think who knows, we don't see the back office of Google, but I would say that user signals on Chrome, especially now when you're thinking about like if you're Google, how do you decipher what's AI generated crap versus content that people actually consume and enjoy? And I would have to think Chrome must play a role in that, of just like organically figuring out, okay, someone that's on this page is actually, you know, based on how their dwell time, whether they actually finish reading the article, whatever. I think more and more of that stuff matters versus just backlinks and, topical relevance, that kind of stuff.
I totally agree. Backlinks are still relevant, but without the good content foundation, you're just pretty much wasting money if you don't have your foundation in order. There's AI can do a lot of things, but there's certain things that it can't do well. And I think Google's onto all of that, people who are building massive amounts of pages on sites using AI, thinking that they're actually going to get somewhere. You might get a short-term boost from it, but Google's algorithm is going to catch on, and those sites they're not going to last long. And you're going to be back to square one. So, you can keep doing the same thing over and over again, or you can build a property that works and, delivers real content to the customer. I mean, Google tells you exactly what they're looking for. They want something that's helpful to the customer. And, they're not lying when they're telling you. They may not be giving you the secrets to the kingdom, but they're basically telling you, here's what we're looking for. You do this and you're going to be okay. Expert writing, having experts that are considered authorities in fields, critically important today. Having a website that's about something and not about 100 different things.
Yeah.
That's a killer, and you've had all these blogs through the years that try to be topical on every subject under the sun. And it just, you can get away with a few, but, trying to have 25 different categories you see on blogs that people put links on, it's just pointless to do that.
Well, and yeah, you need the authority footprint of like Forbes.com or something to really play in that. And it is, I think also too, like extending on the AI issue, I think people in general can sort of there's a sixth sense humans have about what's synthetic or not. And I think, when you think about, okay, like what makes a site an authority site? Like what over time, let's say the first couple of years of building your site, or it's you pushing the boulder up the hill, right? Every link is hard won, it's just a grind. But at a certain point, people discover your content and then naturally link to it. And that boulder kind of rounds the top and it starts gaining momentum. And then you get more and more discoverability, et cetera. And that's what you want. I mean, that's the whole point of SEO is to get initial discoverability, and then it takes a life of its own. That's not going to happen with synthetic AI content that people don't actually resonate with, right? And so,
Exactly.
yeah, I think that's what people miss in the sense of like, yes, I think there's use cases like programmatic AI driven content for things like, for example, let's say concert listings where you got to quickly fill out content somehow for some live event, and it needs to rank for like one day and then that's it.
Right.
And so like I understand like there are legitimate use cases for AI like scale content. But in general, if you want to like retain an audience, if you want that momentum, that boulder I'm talking about,
Right.
um, there's no shortcut, I don't think.
There's three things, two primary and one secondary, that I think where AI falls real short. And I think to some degree, we'll never know what Google's algorithm is looking at. But I think these three things are part of what they look at when they're trying to determine um, whether something is AI written or human written. And there's a lot of times where human written content will get flagged as AI. And
Yeah.
it's related to these three things. And I think the two primary things that I've yet to see AI do it well, if they can do it at all. There's never any empathy in AI generated content,
Oh, interesting.
and there's never any emotion in AI generated content. And the third thing, which I would consider a secondary, is there's rarely ever any opinion in
Okay.
AI.
It's always
And
neutral
AI,
and balanced.
yeah, AI is designed to be fact driven, look at things that have been written before and derive an answer.
Hmm.
Opinion is not an answer; it's an opinion. And it's like a review site. If you're writing a review is an opinion. And
Yeah.
if you're just copying something from another site and you don't offer anything new or a personal experience, Google can see that. But I think those three things are very important when looking at how Google sees AI. And it's just boring. Human writing is emotional. Sometimes it's sad, sometimes exciting. I
Mm.
think the emotional component, maybe one day AI will get there. I look at it kind of like Data on Star Trek: The Next Generation. He didn't have any emotions, and eventually they gave him an emotion chip
Right.
later on in the movies. Will that happen with AI? Probably. It's not there yet, and I think that's a critical thing people miss in writing today is those three things. It's like that's going to be something that's going to make you stand out from the crowd. Um, that Google will say, "Yeah, this is human written," and
Yeah, and as much as we ascribe to Google's sort of algorithmic capabilities, and it's a lot, I think also what they're really looking at is like human reactions, right? So like what's the reaction to whatever, this piece of content, this URL? And I think like you just won't, it's really hard to simulate that, especially at scale. If you're talking
yeah.
thousands of visitors a day or whatever, like they're gonna see if this thing is landing or not.
There's
Um,
never any anger. There's never any sadness. There's never
right.
any happy or joy in AI-driven content. All those things are missing, but that all falls under emotion.
That's a really good point. I never actually thought about that before. Um, yeah, that's really interesting. One quick funny thing. Someone put, they have all these AI detectors and whatever
Right.
now. And someone put the book of Genesis from the Bible through the and it
Okay.
came back as it's apparently AI. So maybe we're living in a simulation. Who knows? Um, but yeah, so probably some issues with some of those detectors. I wouldn't take them too literally. Uh,
And I don't want people to think that I'm against all uses of AI. That wouldn't be true, but you got to find the right uses of it. It's like
yeah.
any technology, I think since the technological revolution, really back in the 90s when what we have now started coming to be, every time something new's come on, especially when it's internet related, it gets abused and overused at first,
Yeah.
and then there's a backlash, and then you got to kind of find your way forward with it. And how many products have we seen come out about how here's a great tool for AI? There's probably been 500 that I've gotten emails for that it's going to revolutionize. It's not. It's going to revolutionize that guy's paycheck for a month, and then it's going to go away. And he'll be on to writing the next big thing because there's an art to it and there's a learning curve, and you're going to find that the people who use it smartly and apply it where it's going to be best suited probably will end up with the best long-term results.
Yeah, I think like it's what's the word for, I think they call it like the adoption curve, right? Even when you think about the early internet and how much hype there was in 1998, 99, the whole dot-com boom and stuff. And the thing is, they were all that hype was accurate. It's just that it was accurate 20 years later,
Yeah.
right? And so it was like kind of building the railways of early America where, yes, you lay down those tracks and all those towns come to life and there's the movement out west and whatever. And, did it create this big, nation? Well, eventually, but it's not like it happens the next day. And so I think just like how the internet, um, boom happened in the 90s and then kind of crashed for 10 years. It all eventually came true. It's just that it takes a while for, first of all, the product market fit to get discovered and people find out what people actually want. And then secondly, there's these unlocks that have to happen technologically. Like there has to be enough fiber optic laid. There has to be enough like latency with high speed internet, modems, whatever. And then like smartphones were a massive unlock, right, for a bunch of the other stuff. So I think with AI, you'll see something similar where like we get kind of the initial excitement. We've got Chat GPT, whatever, but it's going to take years of these other unlocks to really get to the full promise, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've tested many of the different tools. The one I've found to be the best, and this is not an endorsement, I'm just my own personal experience, was Jasper. I had the best results using Jasper as far as I thought their writing was better. I thought it passed more AI detectors. It's not perfect, but I'm not trying to sell it to anybody. It's just I thought that one did a better job of it. And I think it's still Chat GTP based. So,
Yeah.
but just the way they used it, I thought was a little more effective.
Yeah, I was talking to someone that's they acquired an AI app that's quite popular, and I said like, is this really an AI revolution or is it a UI revolution? Because it's all the same tech, right? But it's just whoever like makes it the most accessible,
Yeah.
right? That's and so that's interesting. Now, Dave, you're kind of on the front lines in many ways with running PosiRank. And, for people that don't know, PosiRank, I think I would say primarily still focuses on agencies. So
Right.
a lot of your platform, a lot of the orders that come through, it's on behalf of clients, it's agencies using it to run their SEO at scale. Um, Over the last few years, like, what have you kind of seen as far as like, how has SEO changed for one, and also how, um, what are things that you're seeing that are different now that weren't, say, 5 years ago?
I think, the term guest post has been used in the SEO industry for years, and
Mm,
it's kind of been the foundation of contemporary link building. Basically every agency that's ever done SEO over the last 5 to 10 years was selling guest posts. And many of them still sell quote unquote a guest post. And I think how the evolution of guest posting has occurred is really, really important. And I think it's very easy for people to get it wrong, and a lot of people spend money on things that are just largely ineffective. And I'm sure everybody listening to this, has gone to websites and said, buy a DA30 guest post, and that's what all you order. Pay your money, you get a DA30 guest post. They give you a link back. You go look it up. It's a DA30. There's a couple problems with that. Is first of all, when Google dropped PageRank years ago, that kind of created an opening for Ahrefs,
yeah.
Moz to create their own private algorithms. And I think people today still put so much emphasis on DA, DR, and they really mean nothing other than it's an attempt by Ahrefs and Moz to try to create something that replaced PageRank. And how
Mhm.
accurate is it? Don't know. But I can tell you this, it's really easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
And so when you're buying these guest posts from people and it's a DA50. No, it's not. If somebody wants to see how it's manipulated, just log into Fiverr put DA boost, and you can take a site that's a DA 10, and within 6 weeks, they'll have you at a DA 50. That's what's going on in the industry. A lot of these junk sites, they just boost this, and then they want to charge it $200 or more for a junk guest post. And that's the only metric people have been selling for years. And, you get a site that has no traffic, it's just a site. It's there for one reason, to make money. And, so how do you get around that? And one of the things we've evolved with through the last couple of years, and we do all our link building in-house, there's a lot of metrics you got to look at. And I just got a list here. So if you see me look at, that's what I'm looking at. We still look at DA and DR, but we don't put as much emphasis on that, although people still want it. And so it's there. There's things you got to look at when you're considering, is a site good enough to put a customer's link on? Do they have right for us on there, which is basically putting a target on their backside? They're taking paid guest posts. Trust flow for Majestic, citation flow. You want to get those metrics. Again, just another private algorithm. But it gives, when you add all these private algorithms together, it gives you an idea of overall. Does a site have social media links on it? A site generally should, but you'd be amazed how many put the icons there, but then you click them and they don't go anywhere. They're just there to think that they have social media. Are the links actually connected to a real social media site that is actually updated? There's several blacklist sites out there you can run sites through to see if these people have largely done the work for you, to check to see if they're using some kind of fake way of boosting things and, kind of nefarious link building. Referring domains, you can log into Ahrefs or similar web get traffic numbers. I can tell you that they're not accurate. You got to kind of estimate them and just get a ballpark. If Ahrefs says a site gets 10,000 visitors and another site you put in there says it gets 0, it's probably true that the site that lists 10,000 gets more traffic. But is it accurate? We all know that all you got to do is look at your own site and know how many visitors you're getting, and then look at the number in Ahrefs, and it's usually not even in the ballpark. So you got to take those numbers also with a grain of salt. But there are some metrics that these companies provide that I think carry more weight than others. You can look at a 2-year link graph. Look, if you see any vertical spikes up or down, there's been some bogus link building going on, and you want to avoid those sites. We would not use sites like that for our partners. Things like, does it have a unique privacy policy, terms of service? Something as simple as that. You'd be amazed how often you go to a site that says, we'll sell you guest posts. You go look at the site and you go to their privacy page, and it mentions another domain that they copied it from.
Right.
It's like not even their domain. So, it's like a junk site right off the bat. But one of the most interesting metrics that we've been using a lot recently is ranking keywords. And that's a metric you can get from Ahrefs. And that's not a metric that is easily manipulated. You go in there, you put in a URL. I'm not talking the root domain. I'm talking you put in the actual URL that you're going to put a link on. And if it's got ranking keywords, you can be pretty sure Google's giving that page a little bit more weight than a page that doesn't. And I know industry-wide, when you look at guest posts, historically, it's been about 8% of pages with guest posts that have actually been placed on pages with ranking keywords, which means 90% of everything you're doing is probably going on a page that's not very effective. It's not going to carry a lot of weight. And, we've been working on a project. I'm not going to get into too many details right now, where, we've got a database probably now of close to 5 million URLs that are all ranking keywords. So we know where the ranking keywords are. We know what pages are ranking at Google. So, when we don't even call them guest posts anymore. I hate that term. But when we put one of our customers' links on a page, we're trying to make sure you're actually getting some real value for it. That doesn't guarantee that everything's going to be a success. It's SEO is like the weather. It changes every day. It goes up, it goes down. It's never going to be a guarantee. But long term, it's a great investment, because if you build the content, write the good content, and then you do smart link building, over time, you're probably going to do pretty well. And depending how competitive your market is, it doesn't cost a fortune. And people need to go compare SEO to the cost of PPC and see what some of the rates are on Google.
Oh, yeah.
It's just insane. It's just absolutely insane.
So just to rephrase, I guess to nail this point home, you're saying that about 90% of the guest posts and the links that people are generally buying on, in the SEO industry are literally being put on pages that rank for nothing.
Correct.
Wow. That's incredible.
And I'll put a qualifier in that. I even went back and looked at our own data from 6-7 years ago.
Right.
When guest posts first became popular, and we were selling them like everybody else was. And when I look at those pages today, yep, you go into Ahrefs, type in the URL, it comes back. It's just a hyphen right there. There's no ranking keywords. That page is worthless.
Wow.
They may be indexed in Google, but Google's giving it no weight. But ranking keywords is a metric that is not, you cannot manipulate. Ahrefs is going to see what Google actually has. All the other data, most of the other data is just their own private algorithms.
Yep.
And can be faked. That one metric, they're looking at Google. So that's what Google's telling us. You got to look at what you know to be true and what somebody thinks might be true. And you got to separate the two things. And you want to err on the side of what you know is true, that page has ranking keywords. And it's just simply going to give you a lot more value for your link. And, I don't know what every agency is doing, but I know that most of them are not going to be above 8 or 10%. It's just because that's what they're doing. It's a volume business, and it takes a lot of time to be able to develop a database that's going to give the customer what they really need. We don't tell our customers exactly what we're doing, but it makes it more effective, and hopefully in the end gets the customer better results.
Well, yeah, and even I don't know if this is a ranking signal for Google or not, but like if a site or if a page is ranking, presumably it's getting traffic. And if you get traffic flow through the links that you're building, I mean, that's a pretty good signal too. And not to mention it's traffic, right? So, who'd have thought that links should be driving traffic, right?
Exactly. I mean, but they can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best link, nobody would dispute that the best link is an earned link. If your content is so great that 100 people want to link to you, hey, you got to go read this article.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality of 90% of the businesses that we deal with on a daily basis. We deal with small businesses. They're not going to be able to have content that CNN is going to put on their front page. And, that's an earned link. I have a few friends that have sites like that get, they do interviews on TV. The average client is not going to be that person. And
well, no, and you got to push the boulder uphill, right? Like this is the reality of SEO. You're not like it. I know there's a sort of, I call it like I don't know what to call it, but there's a portion of the niche site community that is almost like anti-links. Yeah. And they just publish content, and they, that sort of, they like, of course, what happens is they're probably publishing on keywords that have zero competition. Some of that gets picked up naturally, and then there's sort of that, but like it just takes so long, right? So the reality is, like, you have to kickstart the process somehow, unless you have like 3 years to wait. So like you have to start from somewhere. And SEO, as I see it, the first little bit sucks, and it's a lot of grind, and you got to push the boulder up the hill. You will get those earned editorial links at some point. But the reality is, like, you got to start somewhere.
Let's face it, I think as a species, we're basically impatient.
Yeah.
And that's human nature. We spend money, we want to see something for that money. And it doesn't always work that way. And, with the Google updates, how many times have we seen it through the years? It's more than we can count, where Google does an update. Oh my God, everybody panics. I lost all my rankings. My traffic dropped 50%. What do I do? And generally the right answer is nothing, not
Right.
right away. Just sit back, relax, because when Google does a major update and people get slammed, it does happen. Odds are they're going to modify that update after they find out they screwed up. And then 2 weeks later, there'll be an update to that update, and they tweak it, and you start seeing things start coming back. And the worst thing you can do is play cat and mouse with Google on a day-to-day basis, because, we've had phone calls, all of us have had phone calls from clients where, hey, my site was ranked number 2. Now I'm number 6. What am I doing wrong? Your only thing you're doing wrong is asking the question. It's like that's natural variation, it's statistical variation. Nothing changes. It's like, why was it, sunny yesterday and partly cloudy today? It's like,
Right.
it's reality, and it's going to vary. You're never going to be, you can get to number 1, but you're not going to be number 1 on every time everybody searches. You might drop to 3, 4, you might go back to number 1. Fluctuation within the search engines is a normal thing, and you have to learn to accept it and live with it. And there could be some pain along the way when Google does a major update, but you got to let the dust settle and take some time and evaluate. But when you react quickly, you're probably making a mistake, and you start going in and changing things that really aren't broke, because sometimes you have to accept the fact that maybe their update was broke and they will fix it. And we've all seen that many times.
Oh yeah. I mean, how many times, like I think, was it Penguin or Panda? That was one of them. It was supposed to be a one-time update, and I think there's still recurring.
15 years later, they're still updating. Fixing the update. And
Exactly.
Google's always going to evolve. I mean, they're not a perfect machine. It is a machine, and it's far from perfect. And,
Totally.
If they had it right to begin with, they wouldn't need another update.
Well, and that brings me to I was going to ask actually about the helpful content update they just rolled out in September. What are you seeing on your side as far as client impact, or is that sort of just people
We
are
had a
used
couple
to it?
clients that got hit a little bit. In most cases, these were clients where we had told them things ahead of time that were content related that you need to change, and they didn't get around to changing them either quick enough or just didn't. And that's common also in this industry. A lot of it with the helpful content update, again, and these are articles that are human written for the most part, but without author attribution, that's a big factor today. If there's no author attribution, and if you want to take that a step farther, if it's not an expert in a field, it tends to get hit by Google. They're looking for experts in a given field. And most content out there today doesn't have attribution. There's a lot that does, and there's even fewer that have expert. I mean, if you're writing medical articles and you don't have a doctor or a nurse or somebody that's written previously on that subject, you're not going to have a chance of ranking. It's just not going to happen. And Google's looking for experts who have a track record. I've seen cases where people go make up a bio, they go find some picture of some dude on Google and plaster it in there, and that picture's on 100 other websites, and Google will figure that out too. You're just wasting your time. It's just work that's not going to yield any benefit or result to you. I mean, it takes work to do everything right, and that's the hardest thing for people to do, because it all takes time and sometimes money, depending how much you want to spend.
For sure. As far as attribution, I'm actually curious myself. Like, can Google kind of figure that out just from like an author byline and a link to their LinkedIn or something? Or what do you technically?
Yeah, I don't know everything they're looking at, but I think they look at, if that author name is out there in other places, is it a completely different bio? Is somebody an expert on gardening, and then the next thing they're an expert on car tires,
right?
And are they an expert on HTML programming, PHP? That's kind of a common thing, and there's nobody that good. Some people are experts in maybe one or two things, and you need to stick with what you're good at. And if you really want to do it right, go find somebody who's really good at that subject. And I'm not saying every sales page or on every site has to have that. There's different kinds of content. There's sites that are B2B and they're selling products. I mean, so there's a fine line in a gray area in a lot of this, where what do you write and what do you put down? And sometimes that's an unknown. You got to sometimes test it and to see what happens. I mean, I think Google probably has, and I don't think anybody would dispute this, different rules or different algorithms or different variations of their algorithm for different niches,
Yeah.
what they're looking for. It's not a constant. And, if you're in a very competitive market versus a very non-competitive market, they're not being weighted the same. They're looking at different things. And I think that's been proven many times over through the years. And you got to find the balance. It's like I said, there's a lot of gray in this. And, anybody that professes to know all the answers, as soon as you think you know the answer, you'll find out you don't.
Yeah. And it's like you say, you got to look at like what are the actual SERPs in your space, right? And
Yeah.
if you're in a hyper competitive market, let's say, something financial or whatever, one thing I'm seeing a common trend with is Google's, or not Google, but marketers are teaming up, it seems like, with these, they're called parasite pages, but they'll work with like SF Gate or Times of India or some big tier one news publisher that for whatever reason, like I guess this is their new business model. They're just publishing basically junk articles, but they rank, right?
Yeah.
So like, is that something you see impacting uh, current clients or what?
Yeah. I mean, there's been an explosion of like the India, Pakistan markets as far as these kind of sites out there. And, not all of them are garbage,
Right.
but a lot of them are, and a lot of them are just what I call quick money artists. They just want to make as much money as they can, as quick as they can. But there are some legitimate sites over there. The question is it relevant? You got to
Yeah.
ask yourself, are they talking about every subject under the sun? Is the Times of India trying to be like CNN? I mean, CNN covers every topic imaginable, but nobody would turn down a link from CNN
Right.
or the BBC or, anybody like that. So it just depends on the actual nature of those sites. I mean, there are sites that are varied in many different countries in the world that a link's going to carry weight from those sites. So
Yeah.
you kind of got to judge them on an individual basis. But there's a lot of those kind of sites out there. Odds are if you've never heard of it, it's probably not a big player.
Yeah. Well, and I think some too have sort of, I don't know, maybe they've fallen on hard times or something, but they've sort of taken a turn, right? Like it used to be like SF Gate was about San Francisco. Now it's about every friggin' affiliate offer and under the sun, right? So,
I see that all the time,
yeah.
The Annapolis Gazette, we live near Annapolis, and the Annapolis Gazette, and then you go and there's articles about Washington State, it just has nothing to do with Annapolis. It's
Right.
It's worthless.
Yeah. So but yeah, anyway, I mean, it's kind of the state of the, it's, you got to be aware that that's who you're up against in some of these more competitive niches, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's always going to be a market for low cost junk links because people can sell them to other people who don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. Somebody says you can get 7,000 links for $100. No, you can't.
No.
You can get 7,000 pieces of junk.
Yeah.
Think of it as confetti. That's all it is. It doesn't have any value. Just
Totally.
a mess on the floor.
Turning just quickly to one thing that might be kind of impactful, I think, depending on kind of where it goes. But earlier this year, Google leaned quite heavily into SGE, so the search generative experience, where they're experimenting with, instead of generating website results to queries, actually generating content in sort of a hybrid kind of basically like Google meets Chat GPT. I've heard from people that have large sites, they see some impact. Funny enough, one guy we both know, he has a major travel site. He said that traffic from Bard or traffic, not Bard, traffic from whatever the Bing one's called, their Bing traffic actually went up after Bing rolled out their AI chat thing.
Okay.
So, I mean, it could be luck of the draw. I don't know, but as you know, through the PosiRank lens, have you seen any impact to people that have seen like either a reduction or some kind of change from Google's AI search engine?
That's one area that I say we have not necessarily seen a lot of feedback from customers.
Hmm.
And I actually talked to Lewis about that last week, and he said it hasn't been impactful. And that it doesn't mean it's not. It just means our personal experience with our clients, we have not seen that being a major factor at this point. Other people may say that see it very differently.
Right. That's it. Oh, it's good to know because it's, you know, my thought sort of zoomed out, like looking at it from 30,000 feet. If you're Google and you earn most of your revenue from basically, it's still PPC, it's still search
Right.
ads, right? So like in a way, you know, when Bing first rolled out its thing, I forget what it's called, but basically it's Bing GPT, let's call it. I was like, holy crap, this is a power play because Bing has nothing to lose. Like they have no market share, no meaningful market share.
Nothing to
And
lose.
they're going to force Google to have to do something here. And if you have if you're generating answers rather than a list of websites, what happens to the ad revenue? Where's the incentive for the user to
Yeah.
click through on different results, right? So in a way, I view it as like a catch-22 for Google.
Yeah, because Bing beat him on that one. Bing got there
Right.
first,
Yeah.
which
But
is rare.
well, it was a funny power play, right? Like they and of course Google had to kind of rapidly release Bard, which kind of, you know, it wasn't the most polished thing in the world, that's for sure.
Right.
But anyway, you know, based on what you're saying, it seems like it's one to watch, but we're not seeing it yet. Is that fair?
Not a big player for us at this point.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, if you were to sum up, and we're almost at the end of 2023 now, but if you were to sum up kind of what works best now, um, you know, based on what you see and kind of what seems to have withstood the various updates and so on.
Right.
Um, yeah, what would you say that is right now?
I'd say it's really comes down to two things. Good content. If you have good content, you can have an average link profile and
Hmm.
probably do okay. If you have bad content and a great link profile, you're not going to do okay. I still think
Hmm.
content is more important than links. If you have to do one or the other, I think content is has to come first because without it, I just don't think you're going to make a connection with Google.
Right.
If you got the content, link building is as important as it's ever been, even more so. You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to go away because Google, you know, there's really no other way to grade a site other than popularity, and they use link building as for popularity. But you got to have the content, and I think almost all these updates recently, they've been content driven. I mean, that's what they're.
Yeah.
You know, anybody that's getting hit, all you got to do is go look at their content, and you can kind of figure out here's why you got hit. You know, we get calls from people, you know, my site was ranked good, now I'm not. What do I need to do? Well, you go look at their site, and there's a big problem with content. And it's just sometimes it just hits you in the face. And sometimes people are willing to make those changes, and other times it's just too much work and they don't want to do it. And nothing worthwhile is easy. You know, you got to put in the work.
Is it like what are common issues? Is it just like too thin or what do you see usually?
It's sometimes it's way too thin. There's just, you know, they have 200 words on a page.
Hmm.
Google likes long form content generally. It depends. Obviously, it varies on what your page is about. Thin content is a huge problem. Um, Content that's just written poorly, grammar errors, spelling mistakes, looks like it was written by a non-English speaker, and
Yeah.
sometimes it is. Um, just things like that, just basic mistakes that, you know, any 10th grader should be able to look at and say, this is really not very good. And, you know, if you read it and you don't like it, ask yourself, why did I write this?
Right.
Or, you know, did I read this? It's like, or are you just writing it what's the purpose of writing it? Is it so the search engines will like it? If a human's not going to like it, it doesn't have any purpose. And that's where it's gone. I mean, it's still a machine algorithm, but it's becoming more human through the years.
Yeah.
And you got to write for people. And if you don't write for people, and you're never going to get it 100% right, no matter what you do, but you got to write for people. That's the only focus. Don't be worried about optimizing content for this keyword, that keyword. If you're writing about a subject, just let it flow naturally. You see keyword stuffed articles, and it's just, I'm not saying they'll never rank, but that's not what Google's really looking for anymore. They just want something that tells people, you write a really well-written 1,500 word article, it can rank for 100 different phrases, just because of the way it's written. But if you write junk, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it really is just the fundamentals, I do think though, your point on like at least as qualifying or like a filter for initial backlinks, the ranked pages, that's interesting. I think that's something that I don't think most or any platforms are really focusing on right now.
You got to look for something that can separate the links you're giving your client from the pack. And it's not an easy thing to deliver on a mass scale, but we're trying to do that. And we think it is a game changer in the industry because not many people are really doing it. And I think everybody's still focused on the big two, DA, DR. What's my DA? What's my domain authority?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Google doesn't give a crap about DA. It's not theirs.
No, and it's like you say, it's easy to manipulate. I think in the, rounding the wagons on it, it's really like, is this link real? Right. Yeah. And how do we what's the best determinant for that? And it's basically traffic. It's like, is this thing getting traffic? Are people actually reading where my link is going to be? So that's really interesting. I think it's fair to say we could put a pin in that one and come back to it in the future because it sounds like you're building something there. So
yeah, it's like it's the one area where Google is still telling you what works.
Totally,
and because they don't give out a lot of information. They want your information. They don't give out a lot of theirs. But if you go into Ahrefs, they will tell you what's ranking, and that's coming directly from Google. So, if Google's telling you something, listen to them. Most of the time, they don't tell you everything, but they tell you enough.
Totally. All right, on.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate you taking the time today and basically giving us like a status check. You've got the history in this space to see all the ups and downs and the roller coaster across decades. And so I think there's a lot of weight behind kind of how you see things at the moment. And I really appreciate it. Where can people find you right now? Where's your primary, I guess, internet presence?
PosiRank.com, PosiRank.com. That's where you can find us.
Right on. And that's, so I mentioned, you deal with agencies, but you also deal with small businesses, right?
Well, we have all kinds of clients, small, medium, big ones. We try to work within whatever a customer needs and, be honest with them. If we can help them, we'll try to help them. If we don't think we can help, we're not going to try to take their money. And it's just, we're not going to take your money just because you're willing to spend it.
Right.
It's like, that's not very ethical. So we try to at least do it right.
Well, and you're in it for the long haul anyway. So it's, you want people to come in and see results and then they keep spending. So
the best customer is one that's a happy customer, and the happy customer is one that we can deliver results to. So
totally.
They're not going to stick around if we don't do a good job.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, again, really appreciate the time. And, for my audience here, this isn't the last you'll hear of Dave. There's some stuff in the works, I think, and you'll be hearing from us again. So, hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be back again soon.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Good talking to you.
All right. You too. Thanks, Dave.
All right.